I recommended to the president that we shut the country down. And that was a very difficult decision because I knew it would have serious economic consequences, which it did.
I wonder if you would recommend locking down schools if you had to do it all over again.
Well, again, it's first of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down. You're asking me questions. You're talking about the CDC is the public health agency, and I have always felt, and you go back and look at my statements.
We spoke to one of the WHO investigators who'd been to Wuhan to investigate how the virus started, and they were prevented from seeing key details and from speaking to key people. Why do you think the Chinese government did that?
I don't want to create any or mention any disparaging remarks about that, but the Chinese are very closed in a way of being very reluctant, particularly when you have a disease that evolves in their country. They become extremely secretive, even though there's no reason to be secretive. I think they were very concerned and maybe embarrassed that the virus evolved from their country, but there's nothing wrong with that. So when they...
One of those citizen journalists is Chen Kuishi. He's also a lawyer. Chen had heard China was covering up the unfolding tragedy in Wuhan. So he went there and started posting videos.
那个护士还主动问我，你看没看网上那3具尸体停走廊里的视频？我说看了，对，那个官方已经辟谣了，但是是真的。我说啥？官方已经辟谣了，但是真的。
And then he disappeared. Mr. President, what evidence were you presented with that convinced you that it did in all likelihood come from a lab?
Well, I started hearing stories that you have also, that there were lots of body bags outside of the lab. And people were saying there are a lot of people lying down on the streets of Wuhan, and there were body bags.
Body bags outside of the Wuhan Institute of Virology?
I heard that a long time ago.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function.
The Wuhan Institute of Virology that is located at the epicenter of the outbreak has been creating chimeric genetically modified coronaviruses for many, many years. And they've been putting these spike proteins from different viruses in their backbones and then studying how well does that infect human cells. Just this alone formed a very plausible argument that this is actually the lab that hosts so many different coronaviruses, explains the lab leak the best.
So
let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans,
right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. The masks are important for someone who's infected to prevent them from infecting someone else. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is.
But now the experts say with these variants, it's time to double up. And where to? This morning, Dr. Fauci endorsed the idea on the Today Show.
If you have a physical covering with one layer, you put another layer on, it just makes common sense that it likely would be more effective.
More effective, especially with one new variant spreading much more easily.
So experts say you can double up with a tight weave fabric mask for added protection.
There are many people who feel, if you really want to have an extra little bit of protection, maybe I should put 2 masks on. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's no data that indicates that that is going to make a difference. And that's the reason why the CDC has not changed the recommendation.
Okay, you get one person. Let's read from the NIH definition of gain of function. This is your definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among animals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals, and they increased their transmissibility to humans.
For those who keep bringing up, the possibility of a bat in the wild markets in Wuhan having been the source of COVID-19, scientifically that has really no merit because it can't infect bats. So it couldn't have come straight across from a bat if it can't infect a bat.
If COVID-19 was the result of gain of function or other risky experiments at the Wuhan lab, remember this. That same lab was being partly funded by America.
That when people are vaccinated, they can feel safe that they are not going to get infected, whether they're outdoors or indoors.
You said earlier this week that if you're vaccinated, you should feel comfortable traveling and celebrating the holidays with your family. Do you still believe that?
No, I do. If you are vaccinated and boosted and are prudent when you travel, when you're in an airport, to be wearing a mask all the time, you have to be wearing a mask on a plane. Do not do things like go to gatherings where there are people who you do not know what their vaccination status is. Well,
the lab leak theory is continuing to gain momentum, and there are now concerns Dr. Anthony Fauci lied when he was under oath while speaking at Senate in July. Newly released documents obtained by The Intercept show the National Institute of Health directed a grant of $3.1 million to the US health organisation EcoHealth Alliance. Dr. Fauci is the director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and oversees several programs at the NIH. According to The Intercept, just shy of $600,000 of the $3.1 million went straight to the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Senator, because if you look at the viruses that were used in the experiments, that were given in the annual reports, that were published in the literature, it is molecularly impossible.
No one's saying those viruses caused it.
No one is molecularly.
Those viruses caused the pandemic. What we're alleging is that gain of function research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it.
That is
you can't
not.
Get away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not obfuscating the truth. You are the one.
Time is expired, but I will allow the witness to.
Let me just finish. I want everyone to understand that if you look at those viruses, and that's judged by qualified virologists and evolutionary biologists, those viruses are molecularly impossible to result in SARS-CoV-2.
We have a lab leak. I've been wondering this. Do we have any idea how that would even work? Have you heard any accounts as to how that might have happened? Is there speculation in the scientific community as to how that happened?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Jim. So one of the things that people maybe don't fully appreciate, that all of the intelligence agencies agree unanimously that this was not engineered. Namely, they didn't deliberately do this to make a bioweapon. Everybody agrees with that. No matter what your prior thoughts were, everybody agrees with that. A lab leak could be that someone was out in the wild, maybe looking for different types of viruses in bats, got infected, went into a lab, and was being studied in the lab, and then it came out of the lab. But if that's the definition of a lab leak, Jim, then that still is a natural occurrence. The other possibility is someone takes a virus from the environment that doesn't actually spread very well in humans and manipulates it a bit, and accidentally it escapes or accidentally infects someone, and then you get an outbreak.
Do you think SARS-CoV-2 was developed as a bioweapon?
So, I'd like to think it wasn't, and I'll probably have to leave it at that because I want to give the benefit of a doubt. And China was also affected by it, so I really don't think it was, but nobody can really know for sure, and certainly now most of that evidence is gone.
So if you are trying to, get at me as a public health official and a scientist, you're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science. And anybody that looks at what's going on clearly sees that. You have to be asleep not to see that. That is what's going on. Science and the truth are being attacked.
Bruh. Who are you talking to right now? Who is it you think you see? You clearly don't know who you're talking to, so let me clue you in.
You think I follow the science, Skylar? I am the science.